Hello and welcome to my Stamina Warden PvP build for the Untitled Chapter. I made some changes. I went back to a more old traditional setup because for me it just works better. It's more consistent damage, and it's also the setup I built. It is really highly customizable. You can change whatever you want, and it still will be decent performing. So yeah. Stay tuned for this. Just right into the character screen. I'm still Orc. I have 20 points in health, 44 into stamina. I'm using the Warrior Stone, but that you can also change around, for example, for the penetration, for the lover. Then I'm stage 3 Vampire for the Undeath passive, which is still completely broken and not nerfed, so we go for Vampire. The buff food we are using is also a Smoke Beer Hunch, giving us max health, and the recovery we need, like Magicka and Stamina recovery, really important, especially also the Magicka recovery on Stamina Warden, because we have so many Magicka skills. Potions we are using just normal Tri-Stat. We need both recoveries, and so I go with Tri-Stat. You can also, of course, go with the Heroism one. Don't think if I still have some. Let's see. Yeah, those give Magicka, Stamina, and minor Heroism, but they're extremely expensive. But if you're rich, go for this. Would be better, of course. Poisons we are using Backbite's Escapist Poison. When it procs, we get CC immunity for 4.4 seconds, and the other dude gets immobilized. Coming armor sets. Monster set, I'm using now Malubeth. The reason I'm choosing Malubeth here is because I went actually back to Arctic Blast or Polar Wind in this case, because I just like the old high HP playstyle of a Warden. And Polar Wind isn't that great of a heal, so we use Malubeth to increase the healing. I have 2 times heavy, both in reinforced, with the prismatic enchant. On our back bar, which is now unusual to my previous setups, because now we are running Clever Alchemist on our back bar. So we have a sturdy shield, we have a defending sword, and we have 2 times jewelry and infused with weapon damage, and 1 reinforced heavy boots of Clever Alchemist. Clever Alchemist for me synergizes really well with Warden, because Warden is more of a burst class, and the most kill potential you will have when you have your ultimate up. And for me, I can kinda time it good with my potion cooldown, so having then the Clever Alchemist proc is really handy, because I'm looking for peak damage, like not consistent damage, but I want, when I actually try to burst, I want the highest damage possible, and that with Clever Alchemist will provide a huge amount of weapon or spell damage, and just great for overall burst. And it actually lasts 20 seconds, so you have a big window where you have pretty high damage. And our front bar setup here is now Stones. Stones provides huge amount of penetration when we set someone off balance, like when we set him off balance, and damage him, so we will get insane amount of penetration. And we do this quite a lot because we are still running Decius or spammable. So Stone, a sharpened maul, then we have light sash in sturdy, medium braces in sturdy, heavy legs in reinforced, all with prismatic enchant, and of course the usual 1 trainee for the maximum health. Our mythic is now back to the roots, back to Malakat. On heavy Stamden, I actually think that crit damage isn't that strong. You don't get much modifiers on it, and your crit chance isn't that great, since we also dropped Lotus for another skill. And even with Lotus you only had like 23-24%, and I don't think really that's worth it, because so many people also playing with Rallying Cry, and your crit damage against the Rallying Cry people will basically the same as normal damage. So I went back to Malakad, getting my 16% damage on everything, but crit will be the same as normal attacks. But we have pretty high damage on that build, and I think Malakad helps with that pretty good. So going to skills, as I already mentioned, Dizzy Swing is our main spammable, also setting people off balance. And if we combine our Clever Alchemist proc against someone who's off balance, so we also get our Stone procced, we do have quite of a huge damage window that we can benefit of. Executioner, of course, if he's low, we're gonna use Executioner, because that's gonna be hit harder than Dizzy Swing. Deep Fissure got a nice buff. We get Major and Minor Breach, which is 9k penetration, and the AoE damage also really good. I prefer it, of course, over Subterranean Assault, because 9k pen, it's huge amount of damage. Bird of Prey for speed, then the Minor Berserk when we have slotted, and a 2% additional damage from advanced species. Then next skill is Growing Swarm, just the damage over time, but we also apply minor vulnerability, so our target has 5% increased damage taken, and 5% on top is really good. Then we have Dawnbreaker is our burst ult, as I said. For me, Warden is a burst class, and I combining Deep Fissure with Dawnbreaker is a lot of AoE burst. I saw some people using the more of the Northern Storm, which gives you 300 weapon and spell damage for nearly 30 seconds. Or is it nearly 30? It's 30 seconds on max rank, but for me, I don't really like it. Like, it's for sure some AoE pressure, but I need burst and the additional weapon and spell damage. I also get weapon and spell damage by slotting Dawnbreaker through the Slayer passive, which is 3%, but judging that we can reach, usually with Clever Alchemist procced, about 6k weapon damage, and more even, that's about 200 weapon damage just by slotting that skill, and we don't have to use Northern to get a similar buff. Yeah, on backbar we have Bolnage, just our source of major brutality or major sorcery, depending on what enchants you picked. Like, usually I swap it around. Either I go weapon damage, if I do with the DK cause he will give me minor brutality, increasing my damage. But if you play with the Templar, you can go spell damage on your jewelry, and also of course swap the Mundus to Apprentice. You won't loot anything, you will only gain from the minor sorcery of the Templar. If you struggle with magical sustain, you can swap it to the Blue Betty, because Polar Wind is indeed quite expensive, but for me it's still fine, so I stick with Bolnage. Leeching Vines here, the minor lifesteal you apply to enemies around you really synergizes well with the AoE dot of Polar Wind, so every time the Polar hits people around you, you will proc minor lifesteal, healing you, and that's a lot of healing you can get there. Resolving Vigor, the usual healing over time, and Ice Fortress is our armor buff, and we get minor protection on top. Defensive ults, either Spell Wall or you go with Healing Thicket. For me, I prefer Healing Thicket in CP, and in no CP I go with Spell Wall. For my no CP setup, I will also make a video, and just check my channel, should be up soon. Those are the skills, the setups. Everything prismatic enchant, of course. Full weapon damage, I already showed. I think I didn't skip anything. Coming to the CPs now. Green ones just quick. Gifted Rider, War Mount, Rationer, and Steed's Blessing. We got some changes in the blue tree. Some CPs got nerfed. So what we are using now is we have Ironclad, still good damage mitigation, even though it got nerfed from 10% to 6% damage, but still fine. Then we have Focus Bending that didn't got nerfed, so we still get benefit of this full 10% healing done with every single target heal, so it stays on. New CP we got is Exploiter. So every enemy who's off balance will get, we will do 10% more damage against him, and we also have Stone on top. So everyone who's off balance will get huge amount of damage from us, because we get the synergize with off balance from Stone and Exploiter is just great. And having your Clever Alchemist proc on top of that is huge damage. And then we have Mastered Arms for 6% direct damage attack buff. Red ones, we have Pain's Refuge, still one of the best mitigation champion point. Sustained by Suffering, Survival Instincts, and Fortified. I choose Fortified because I just like the constant armor we get from it, but you can go with Juggernaut or with Celerity for more speed. That's just whatever you prefer, right? And coming to your personal preference, you can swap around a lot. You can swap around, you can use, instead of Malobet, you can use Magma. Do I have it here? Yeah, Magma. It will give you more recovery, will give you some decent amount of weapon and spell damage with minor courage and 3k armor on top. Or you can craft different trades and go medium armor, then slots Shuffle. Replace Swarm here with Shuffle if you want to go medium armor. I would advise using Elude. For me, I don't need a snare removal on stamina builds, at least in CP, so I would use Elude instead for the speed you get. But for example, if you don't like Clever Alchemist, so that you really have to save on your potion, there are millions of different options you can pick for a backbar proc set. It could be one of the best sets at the moment, Rallying Cry. If you already have Rallying Cry in group, you go with Powerful Assault. If you already have also Powerful Assault in group, you pick something different. You can even go 7th Legion. It still will give you some decent amount of weapon damage if you proc it with the armor buff. So you can really play around having Stone's front bar and Clever Alchemist on back bar. Replace with sets you actually like, and or what sets your groups need, right? So yeah, that's kind of about the build. I'm having some good times with it at the moment. The burst potential is really great. You don't rely on lucky crits, because your damage will always be kind of consistent. And yeah, other choices of race, maybe you can go. We can go with Nord or Imperial. Those are my advice races if you don't like Orc. Imperial will give you a huge amount of sustain, and Nord will make you, of course, a little bit more tanky. While I actually prefer Orc for the highest damage possible you can squeeze out, and the sprint speed also kind of nice, works well. Yeah, that's it about the build. Warden is in a kind of good spot at the moment. Still gets outperformed by Magicka DKs or fucking bowsorcs, but yeah, be it shut and play Stamina Warden.